We have a very exciting discussion ahead, and I'm really excited to share who we have on the panel for the webinar today. So let's just get started. Now, your presenters are Laura, Carolyn, and Megan. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of time for them to give a little bit of background and introduction about themselves, and then we'll just get started. And first up, we have Laura from Iron.
Thank you so much for attending today. I'm Laura Biggerstaff. I'm the owner of Iron Elk, and we offer safety apparel for men and women because we figured it out, one size does not fit all. We are also a certified woman-owned small business, and even though we have safety equipment for men, of course, we really are trying to get the word out that we have partnered with manufacturers who also offer safety apparel in women's cut. Really pleased to be here, and I'll pass it along.
Yeah, next we have Carolyn.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for having us today. My name is Carolyn Caranante, and I am a licensed architect in New York, and I'm a construction manager with Aecom Tishman. I work right now on 270 Park Avenue, JP Morgan Chase's new headquarters. My specialty is skyscrapers and building. Past couple of jobs I've been on were One Vanderbilt, Manhattan West, and One World Trade Center. And I'm really pleased to be here as well. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, and next we have Megan.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. Thanks for joining. My name is Megan Salazar. I'm a VDC manager at EnTech. We're a multidisciplinary firm that has one of the largest VDC and BIM teams in the tri-state area, and we basically do anything construction or design technology related. So whether it's laser scanning or reality capture, BIM management, trade coordination, basically anything that our clients need, we could do. And currently I'm actually working on JFK Terminal 1 on Aecom Tishman's design build team. And some of my past experience includes some time at LaGuardia, working on the VDC team there. I'm also managing a project at World Trade Center that involves laser scanning and then creating a model of the building. And before that, I actually worked at this small electrical contracting firm called Eldor as a project manager. And I was, kind of in the field as part of Local 3's administration division. And kind of started my career there. That's when I fell in love with construction. So really happy to be with everyone today.
Oh, sweet. No, thank you for everyone for giving it a little explanation about yourselves and your background and just why we're on today's call. Yeah, and a little bit about us. We're a New York-based company, Kwant. You may have heard of us, you may have not, but at the same time, our goal is to enhance the construction industry and empower workforce performance, safety, and productivity using our real-time wearables and workforce management solution. I'm sure you know a lot of these names, and we've worked with a lot of people. And now, going through our webinar, just like to give a brief introduction and a little agenda now that we got all the intros out of the way. We're going to talk about some industry verticals, challenges, kind of like highlight the topic of why we're here today, go over the importance of safety, go over the importance of how to lead projects proactively and encourage and enhance workforce success. And then also implementing technology within your construction projects, how others are utilizing that currently, what's on the market and the industry insights. And then we'll round it up with more topics on women in construction and leave it a little bit of room for Q&A at the end. And if we don't run out of time, please send in your questions and we're happy to answer that. So why are we here today? A lot of common industry challenges I'm sure all of you are aware of and have run into at certain points and times in your project. Compliance, cost overruns, workforce management solutions, hiring, reducing material waste, delays, privacy issues, training, but around all of those issues as well as safety has been a very big topic. Keeping our job sites safer inherently keeps our job sites more productive and proactive. So that is always the goal as well. Now, another hot topic is the labor shortage. Continues to rise. It hasn't stopped, but at the same time, it's a roller coaster, correct? How do we solve this? How do we support the initiatives that support workforce shortage, finding the right skilled workforce for the job? So these are topics that are never-ending battles, so to speak. So we're always trying to find solutions to support these initiatives. Now, I would love to hand it off to Laura to talk on safety and the importance.
Thank you. Some of you may have heard the phrase, the fatal four. This is a phrase that works in the construction industry in particular, and it's basically the four leading causes of death and fatalities in the construction industry. More than half of all the construction worker deaths in the United States were caused by one of these four hazards. And we're going to be talking about falls, struck by objects, electrocution, and caught in between. And I'm going to give you some examples of each and some ways they could have hopefully been prevented. Falls from heights are the most common cause of construction worker fatality. You've got falls from ladders, from scaffolding, from roofs, and other elevated surfaces. Well, here's an example of something that happened in my hometown back in 2019. We had the Greenville Memorial Auditorium, and KISS was playing in concert. All of the 6,500 people were in the arena. The show's about to start, but one of the roadies had gone up into the ceiling and before the event, right before the event, and took a 1,500 watt light fixture and put it face down on a wooden catwalk so that they could get some of their rigging up for the stage for the concert. What started a fire, oddly enough. They sent somebody up to check on the fire, and while that person was up there, they were not connected or anchored, and they fell into the crowd below. Absolutely devastating. So in addition to the person falling to his death, you had chaos in the arena. The director of the arena came out and said, we need to evacuate. Well, that caused pandemonium in, everybody was there to see KISS. People started screaming, they started fighting, and the director finally had to say, we're not going to have a concert if y'all don't evacuate this building. Now, that was so tragic, and it will always be in my mind, even though I didn't see it, I heard about it. It was something that could have certainly been avoided. One of the things they could have done is have a site-specific fall protection plan, not only written, but explained to every employee over and over again. And when you get the road crews coming in from different parts of the country or the world, in fact, they need to be aware of these safeguards as well, or they don't have any business being up there in the first place. The supervisor should be there at all times to make sure that whoever's up there is safely anchored to something, and that all of the policies that they put into place are being carried out. It just blows my mind still that there were no harnesses, anchorage points, no weight limit notifications. It caused the death, and it caused a lot of folks getting hurt as well with the fighting. The second of the fatal four is a strike from an object. Workers can be struck by objects that fall from height or are thrown or swung by equipment, vehicles, or even other people. In 2017, there was a man that was killed when a pulley being used to raise and lower pallets to different levels of scaffolding fell and struck his head. One of the ways they could have prevented this was to have a fall zone completely barricaded off and signs that say overhead work. That's the first thing I think, that's a given that they should have done in the beginning, in addition to the training. Also, they could have inspected the pulley prior to using it. They needed to think about the weight load of the crane that it could handle. Actually, this week, I believe it was Monday, and you can check it out as well online, but a construction crane toppled over into a hotel in Myrtle Beach. And luckily, nobody was hurt. But in that case, you know, they didn't check the ground, they didn't check the weight load, and good gosh, thank goodness there were no fatalities in that. Also, something important, I think, is to make sure that there's communication between the supervisors and the workers to others, either by their voice or hand signals. Because sometimes, you know, you can't hear all that well. So hand signals would be wonderful to protect somebody and make sure that they are aware of their surroundings. The third of the fatal four is electrocution. Just recently in South Carolina, 2 workers were inside a lift at an apartment complex, and it came into contact with a high voltage power line outside the apartment building. The lift caught fire. When it touched the power line, the vehicle shorted out. It was grounded to the ground. The line disconnected and it started to arc. So the flashes are going everywhere, and that can really knock you out if you're not protected. One man was able to jump into one of the apartment balconies. The other person was still in the lift, and rescuers came to help him, but the wire was still live. So they had to wait until the power had been cut off of that line, and then they were able to save both of them. Thank goodness. One of the things I didn't know is that aerial lift operators are not allowed to be within 10 feet of a power line. This is a clear case that wasn't followed. And then the final of the fatal four is getting caught in between the equipment, machines, or dirt even that might crush you or suffocate you. Now there's a video that we're going to watch in just a second, and the beauty about this is everybody's okay, but an OSHA inspector happened to be the right place at the right time on site. And if you could show that video now, you can see what I'm talking about. Well, don't have any volume. I'll tell you what he's saying. This man is in the trench there, and the guy that's taking the video is actually the inspector himself. And he asked the young man down there, "Where is your supervisor?" And he points up to a man on the side, and he says to the man, "You can't have somebody in this trench like that. You can't." And as you can see right there, right in front of the guy, it collapsed on him. The man's just hanging by a thread there. It could not have been more perfect timing for this inspector to come by. He saved that guy's life, because before, at the beginning, he was standing right where the trench opening was, and just saved his life in seconds. So he said, the inspector said to the guy after this happened, "That's why you can't be down there. You know, listen to me. These are rules that have been written in blood. You know, people have gotten hurt. People have died from this. We don't say this just to be saying things. There is a reason for it." And this one in particular, I just thought was so perfect as to how I want to express the safety procedures. Have to be in place. They have to be repeated. They have to be trained to everyone over and over again, just to protect each other. And I will let that go from there.
Oh, thank you, Laura. No, that was great. Safety is a constant issue. It'll never go away. And we're always striving to improve any aspect when it comes to safety. And at the end of the day, it comes to the workforce. So I would like to pass off the transition to Carolyn, and speaking about workforce management, leadership, and project management as well.
Thank you, Kim. And I want to just say, reiterate what Laura was saying. Safety is an underlying concept in every aspect of construction. And most importantly, when it comes to management, as managers and as leaders, we do need to keep an eye always on being safe as a primary focus. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll give you guys an idea of, things that we come across as project managers in construction, not only just women project managers in construction, but we are in a predominantly male dominated industry, and the men are, our mentors, our leaders. We learn from them too. And so some of what I've learned over the years, I'm going to point out in the next couple of slides. So when it comes to leadership, there's a couple of things that I think are always important to keep in mind. First and foremost, professionalism. You're a representation of yourself, and you're also a representation of your company. So it's really important to, make sure that you're timely to your meetings and always having a good face in front of the client. Also with the workers on site, having a good rapport with them and a good, communication skills with them will get you so far in these projects. And I know from personal experience, having been able to have conversations with the workers, and as much as having a good relationship enough to be able to speak to them directly goes a really long way. And then another important concept, and I know this could be, I'm sure many of you have seen in the field and working in construction, that we can get a little cocky over time with what we learn and think that we know the most. But really, this is a continuous sort of cycle and a journey. We're constantly learning, and I think it's really important to know that you're never going to always know everything. You can learn new things, and technology is always going to evolve for us to be able to adapt. So when the younger generations come in, they teach us new ways of doing things and communicating and being able to express how you want to portray something. So it's really important to always just humble yourself and say, I'm not the one that knows the most in the room. I'm always going to learn, but let me also be able to share what I know with newcomers that are coming into the industry. The third point is that kindness is really contagious. This is another thing I think, you get more bees with honey is the saying that they say. And being in this industry, I think it's really important to remember we're all human beings. We all have families that we want to go home to and see, and we want to be safe and also be kind to everybody, because that's one thing that's easy to do is just be able to go into meetings and go in and try to build a project and again think like we know everything. But it's really important to maintain that humble sort of quality and be able to know that someone else on the other side of the receiving end might be having a bad day, might be going through something. So just always be, cognizant of those things. And then next slide, Kim, if you can. I just wanted to bring up a case study. This is one of the projects I worked on in 2015. I started there. This is One Manhattan West. Some of you may recognize it. It's on the corner of 33rd and 8th Avenue in New York. The owner was Brookfield Properties, and this is a skyscraper that went up 67 stories. We completed the work in 2019, and we had a lot of big milestones and goals on this project. If for any of you that might have seen it, or if you're ever in that neighborhood, you can take a look at the lobby. The features and architectural milestones on this one were pretty impressive. We had a stone lobby that was pretty much all of the stone that was procured for the job was CNC milled, and a lot of it was custom cut. So we did have a level of precision and quality that had to be maintained throughout the job, which made it a little more challenging than some of our other core and shell work. So another project, next slide, Kim, if you would. This is just a fly through of the job. We did have a retail area, and you could see that is a render of it during construction. Currently, we just completed the second tower, which sits right next to it. So that's 2 Manhattan West. This was a very successful project for us. So we were asked by the homeowner to be part of the second project, and pretty much I'll go to the next slide, Cam. Thank you. This is a picture of where we were in foundations on the first project. And again, some of the challenges on this were safety. We had a lot of different trades working at the same time. We had a very, very tight schedule. The budget was also really tight. We did have to go through typical procurement processes with all of the vendors and be fair and procure this properly and give everyone a chance to participate. We did have MWBE goals in mind that we tried to maintain. The same with sustainability, always being able to divert and recycle as much used material as possible. From an architect's point of view, I thought this project was very challenging because the intent for the design was really beautiful and unique, and trying to maintain that intent and trying to explain sometimes to the contractors, you know, the best way of obtaining and maintaining the design intent is always very, very critical and hard to do. So having the design background made it a little easier for me to see what the end goal was going to be and what the use of this project was going to be, and then also being able to keep that in mind throughout the project. And that's just another point that, you know, as construction managers, sometimes we do forget that the end goal, and it's important to keep that in mind and to know that one day someone's going to be in this building using it as a tenant. Someone's going to go into work here for maybe the next 15 years. And so it's important while we build it that we do that with a lot of pride and keeping that in mind for the future. So here's a slide that we put together. This was back when we were managing the stone lobby construction. There were over 2,000 pieces of stone that were installed on this project. And you can see from the chart above, we were charting it all out and color coding it to make it easy for the clients to understand where we were in the process of procurement and where we were with fabrication and also where we were with installation. So every week we would go into the owners' meetings and present this slide just showing, you know, pink is what's installed, blue is what's still remaining to install. The light blue, we sent out cut tickets to Italy. They're being built and made. And the uniqueness of this project is that you can see from the pictures below, the veining of the stone was supposed to be continuous. So every cut piece of stone came from a quarry in Italy, and the stone had to be cut in sequence. And you couldn't really break stone because you would never get the same veining to match across the entire lobby. So that in and of itself was a challenge to try to not break any stone, and also to have a contingency plan in place in case, God forbid, something in fabrication did break, you know, what was going to be our plan. So, you know, as design professionals and as construction managers, we made sure that everything was properly protected, that contractors, we had excellent contractors on the job that were making sure that they were taking the time to properly protect all of the material that was coming to site and to document it. And also, this is a progress-oriented chart that we like to use also in the field, same as we would go show this to the owners every week. I would go to the field and meet with the stone installers every week and just tell them, look guys, big picture, this is where we are. This is what we want to get to. So in the next 2-3 weeks, we want to have, you know, the whole top row of stone in pink instead of blue, so that we can show progress and see exactly where we are and be able to, you know, look forward to something and look forward to a completed project soon. Next slide, Kim. Okay, and then again, like I mentioned, the bigger picture. This is a view of the skyline from Hudson Yards. We were going to be one project. You could see it in the background between the two buildings in the foreground. That's Manhattan West, the Tower 1. We were going to be part of a bigger picture, a bigger skyline. And again, just having that, knowing that you're representing your company, that you're doing, you know, you're working on huge projects like this that are changing the skyline of New York City is just, you know, so important and crucial. And also knowing that there's the satisfaction of the client at the end. You want to be able for yourself to promote yourself and know that you can get future work, not only for you, but for your company. Maybe you do such a great job on this that you're recommended to do another job and and then continue your career and your journey as a construction professional. And then lastly, this is the last slide I think I have in there. Couple of points to remember, and this is one that I learned from one of the foremen that I worked with on Manhattan West. He used to say, don't be a problem don't be a problem enhancer, be a problem solver. And I think I will always remember that for the rest of my life. It's just, you know, when you come across, it's always going to be tough to work with trades, and sometimes there'll always be a couple of bad apples that will make and exasperate a problem. Just remember, you're there. If you spot a problem, come up with a solution, and always try to remember that it's not really worth it to bring up a problem unless you have a good solution that's going to be able to counteract it. So, and as a professional, you should be able to do that. And also know that, you know, over time, you're going to gain knowledge and experience. You're not going to know everything, but go to the people that are going to help you in your support. And if you ever have questions, ask them, learn from them, and then know that one day there's going to be someone asking you the same questions, so that you know, have the knowledge base to be able to answer those questions. Time management, of course, is also a really important aspect in this industry. And then knowing how to manage your stress is also important. So I think, you know, taking care of your own health, your mental health, and, you know, doing things that make you feel happy and never really losing yourself in the process is another goal and another point that I think lead to being a successful construction professional. So with that, I think that's a short overview of our management style, and I'll pass it over to Megan.
Sweet. Yeah. Thank you, Carolyn, for providing the insights over project management and workforce management. I'll pass it off to now Megan, heading technology within construction.
So yeah, now I'm going to be talking about the types of technology that we typically use on construction projects. I think I'm going to start with the question of why do we innovate? So kind of leading from Carolyn's presentation, technology is an extremely effective tool that we can use to be a better project manager, right? That's ultimately the idea of like why we're using technology. It really is to just become better at what we're currently doing and to optimize our current processes and to be that problem solver and not that problem enhancer. So that's kind of the major goal of, you know, using technology in construction. And, you know, generally it's used to increase productivity and also safety on the job site. So generally construction, which I'm sure most of you know, construction is actually one of the least digitized industries in the world. Productivity, there was a report done, productivity has decreased in the sector since 1970, which is interesting because almost every other sector has increased exponentially. And I think, you know, some of that has to do for, you know, very good reasons, you know, like a lot more safety requirements, which obviously I think we're all very happy that we have those in place now. But I think technology can be used to help solve this productivity issue that we have in construction. So basically, you know, being able to utilize technology to be more productive, I really think it has the potential to change that trend and to help move the industry in the right direction. So I'm sure you've heard of these two terms that are in the next bullet. It's VDC, which is virtual design and construction, and BIM, which is building information modeling. They're just digital tools used to innovate and increase project outcomes. They're used interchangeably. I think VDC is more of like an all-encompassing, you know, technology, and BIM is more of like the building information modeling process. So next slide, please. So I'm going to run through a few of the different trending technologies that are used in the design and the pre-construction process. So BIM is used collaboratively to plan and coordinate a project. It's essentially the bread and butter of BIM. It's essentially involves coordinating all of the MEP building systems and architectural and structural systems, basically everything in the building, and to make sure that it actually fits and it's constructible and that the design works. In my, you know, I like to say it's kind of like creating a 3D prototype of the building before it's built, so that we can actually, you know, make sure that it works. And, you know, we're at the point now where this coordination process happens, and then all of the shop drawings are created following the coordination. So it really kind of diminishes the amount of issues in the field. I mean, there's always going to be issues in the field. I think that's inevitable, especially on the larger projects. But generally, this process has been very useful in getting a lot of those issues that maybe would have been detected in the field and bringing it to earlier in the process, in the pre-construction process, where it's actually, a lot less costly, a lot less schedule affecting. So it's a collaborative process. We get architect, engineer, the CM, contractors, everyone gets involved. And I think it's very, very useful, and it's basically the standard now for most construction projects. And you could see on the right side, that's on the left is the model with all the trades, and then on the right is the actual installation. So that's just an example of, creating the coordinated prototype and then going and installing it as such in the field. And another item that we use is 4D simulation. So this is essentially taking that model and tying it to the project schedule and creating a simulation of it, and being able to detect any potential risks and planning logistics, and just making sure that the project will run smoothly and there won't be any issues with, like, maybe the MEP team is planning to install a duct before you even get the slabs in or something like that. I mean, typically that shouldn't happen, but some of those risks, kind of get missed in coordination, and it's good to have a simulation to kind of see what's there. And another use case in the pre-construction phase is quantity takeoffs. So since we have these data-rich models, there's a lot of data in them. Like, it's very easy to just take a takeoff of, like, square footage of, like, floors, or if you want to take a takeoff on, like, lighting fixtures. And I'm sure everyone's used to using Bluebeam, or like just using a pen and paper and a highlighter. And if you are on a project and you have a BIM team, if you don't want to do it on paper, you should probably just ask the BIM team, and they could probably help you with some more effective, more efficient way of getting those quantities. So now I'm going to move on to tech on the job site. So reality capture, which includes laser scanning, 360 cameras, and drones, it's really become a lot more prevalent in the industry, especially on the larger projects. Like, for example, I'm working on Terminal 1 right now at JFK, and it's actually now a Port Authority requirement that we have to provide laser scanning. So what a laser scan is essentially is using lasers to essentially create what we call a point cloud of points, and you could take measurements based on those points. It creates essentially a 3D image where you can take measurements from. You could track work progress. You could compare the point cloud to any of the models that we have to essentially provide an accurate as-built model. And another thing that reality capture really helps with is stakeholder transparency. So, for example, like, we take 360 cameras on a regular basis here. We take laser scans on a regular basis. We're planning to start drones on a regular basis as well. And just having all of this information available to share with all the different stakeholders. And on a project this size, like, there's a lot of stakeholders. So being able to have these files that anyone could access and see how the progress is going is very, very useful to have. So I definitely, anyone on a project, like, even if it's just 360 camera walkthrough, like, that's something that has proven time and time again, even on small projects, to really just help with a lot of progress. Even with meetings, you could bring up the 360 photos and tag issues and check progress, and it's definitely been proven to be very useful on any job site. Next slide. Okay, so just to continue on the job site technology. So on the right is a picture of someone in the field holding an iPad and essentially just kind of putting it up and seeing what the final product is going to be compared to the current progress in the field. So this is really useful when you have multiple trades working in one area, because they can kind of see what the final product is going to look like, and they know like where if another trade is supposed to be installing somewhere, they know to kind of stay away from that. So it's been very useful in the field. Like at LaGuardia, we had all of the superintendents. They had iPads with the models on it, so that they would be in the field, and if they needed to bring up a specific area, they could just open it up and it would be right there. Another technology is sensors. So this is actually, sensors are essentially wearable devices that you could use to track worker movement on the job site. And this has actually been proven to be very effective in terms of safety. So like, for example, Kwant is an example of a company that provides these sensors, and a major priority of the system is to detect any safety issues that might be happening on the job site, and in addition also check the productivity and to see like where is the highest congestion of workers. So that's very useful data to have on a project, especially on a project like LaGuardia or JFK, where it's like we have thousands of workers on site. Something I'll just talk about these two items really quick. Industrialized construction is also getting much more prevalent in the industry. So that involves prefabrication and modular pieces being, essentially constructed off-site and then brought to site and installed as one unit. So you see that a lot with electrical contractors, like just building full rooms with like their panels and all of their stub ups, and bringing it to the site. This really helps with the schedule, because you don't have as many predecessors required before that can happen. You just kind of take care of it off site and then bring it in. And that's been very, very helpful with saving labor costs on the job site, and also just being very, very very effective in terms of decreasing the schedule, because it allows more tasks to be done concurrently. And then robots on the job site. So I don't think we're at the point where robots are replacing the workers. I think if anything, the robots that we currently have on site, they actually augment worker productivity. So for example, like there's a few robots that kind of like draw the wall lines on the floor, which I personally haven't used that yet, but I've heard it's been very, very useful for a lot of people in the field.
Cool. Thank you, Megan. No, that was great. I appreciate talking about technology within construction, and technology is ever changing, right? So it's a constant climb. It's a constant keeping informed, keeping everyone educated, and just incorporating it in everyone's day to day now, as opposed to before it never was as much.
Yeah, and I think now it's like, it's not just like the BIM team is separate. Like, I think at this point, it's like everyone on the project team needs to have some degree of BIM fluency in order to really be effective. So I think it's just going to get even more and more prevalent in the industry.
Yeah, so much communication and collaboration now. No, awesome. I'd like to move the next topic of discussion over women in construction as well. And I'd like to pass it along to Laura to start the conversation. We had a few questions pop up regarding women in construction as well. So near the tail end of the talking points of everyone, I'll ask a few questions and everyone can chime in.
Sure. Well, as you can see, women make up 14% of the entire U.S. construction workforce. And it makes me mad to even say it, but women earn an average of 83% of what men make. It is a male-dominated workforce. So how do we move forward? Could you go to the next slide, please? So the reason I got into this in the first place was I was at a networking event, happened to be talking with the lady who owned construction, and she knew I had a safety company, and she said, why can't we find safety apparel for women? It was just like a light went off in my head, and I went home from the event and I started researching it, and I was like, she is right. There is not a lot out there. And if you get to some someone that sells just vests, they're not selling jackets, or somebody that sells boots, they're not selling high vis wear. So what I've done is tried to put it all into one spot, and I'm still growing, I'm still learning, but we can basically take care of you from hard hat all the way to the safety boot. And I think the biggest thing as far as helping move the trades forward for women is to let them know that there are alternatives out there. Nobody wants to look frumpy. Nobody wants to get their long sleeve caught in a machine. When a company offers female sizing sets to their employees, I mean, how good does that make them feel? Like, this company really cares about me. They don't want me out there, in a jacket that's 2 sizes too small and gloves with this much hang off of it. These people are really caring about me. So there's a part of inclusion in there as well. And it opens up to these companies that do that. You've got a bigger, diverse pool. It's kind of a win-win situation for everybody. One of the things, Women Talk Construction, I am business partners with Christy Powell, and she is with 84 Lumber, and she and her colleague Angela have a podcast called Women Talk Construction, and they are excellent. And it is just real people talking about the obstacles that they have faced as women in construction. If you want to look at that. Also, Christy and I are co-owners of something we've named Women Confidence Builders. And we are a nonprofit based in Greenville, South Carolina. And we have quarterly luncheons where we bring students, business leaders, and our speakers are not, we ask them not to talk about their products or their brand. We ask them to talk about their journey. And to give everybody, a little bit of hope that, gosh, if they can get through this, surely we can. We also, one of the things I do with my company, Iron Elk, is every Friday I feature somebody called, that I personally do know, and it's called Meet the Women Who Rock. And I love doing that because these people really do rock. And I just don't think there's enough of applause for them out there. So I do that on a weekly basis. And then mentoring. Mentoring takes a lot of time. You can't mentor everybody, but if you see a spark in somebody, go ahead and offer to mentor them, because it makes such a difference. These young women that are coming up, they need people to go through this process with them that can tell them, yes, you can get past these obstacles. You can do it. That's the way to get the trades moving forward.
Oh, thank you. Laura, for jumping in and giving explanation. I'd like to pass it off before I jump into my questions that were asked for this topic to Megan or Carolyn, if they'd like to add to any points from Laura.
No, I definitely want to reiterate what Laura was saying, especially about the mentoring aspect. I think it's really important to mentor and be a good example and a role model for women. I think it's awesome what you're doing, Laura, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
So cool. I could. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, like, I totally agree. Like, I think it's really important for women in the industry, since we really do make such a small percentage of the industry, to really, help each other and help each other succeed. And, that's really important, I think. And I think it's something that is, sometimes not fully done. And I think really making that a priority will help move us forward.
Awesome. I have a few questions I can go over right now that I'll leave the floor open to the rest of you. So what advice would you give a woman entering the industry currently? And I can leave that open to anyone who'd like to answer first.
Well, I can start it off, Kim. I think I would say if I had to give any advice to a woman and just entering the industry is to, be objective, keep an open mind when it comes to applying. And, it's definitely a male dominated industry, but the men, at least in my experience, have been so wonderful and so open, and they have been my mentors and my biggest supporters, even more than women in some cases. And I think that it's really important to just, pick and choose what you want to learn, but also just, keep an open mind with everything that you do learn. And I would say just don't be afraid of bringing whatever tools and whatever kind of skills you have to the table. We have a lot of people on our team that are very crafty and artsy and also are able to think out of the box. And I find it so amazing when the younger, newer hires come in with like very different ways of proposing how to showcase things and how to get their points across. So I think for me anyway, I've been in the industry for almost 15 years. It's always refreshing to have a new take and see what new skills and what new programs are being offered. So I think knowing that you do come with a set of skills that can be shared is really important too.
Definitely. And I think just to kind of grow from what Carolyn said, like, I think a lot of women, like, they grow up and they grow up not really having as much, sureness in themselves, and I think that's just kind of the way that we were, at least my generation was brought up. And I think a lot of women in the industry, in any industry, have a degree of like doubts in terms of like being able to be effective. And I think, knowing your self-worth and like, not compromising that is something that is really, really important. Like, even today, like I see a lot of women that are just a little unsure. Like, even I'm unsure a lot of the times. And it's like being able to realize and be like, no, I know what I'm doing. Like, I have experience, like I have a good, opinion on whatever the matter is, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't really think about. Like, they're not thinking about their thought process. They're not like, why are you feeling this way? Why are you even, second guessing yourself? And I think being able to realize that that's just like a psychological barrier, and being able to fight that and just be like, I am confident and I do know what I'm talking about. Like, to me, that's something that is very important, because you do know what you're talking about, and I think that's something that, just because we or maybe grew up that way, it's not something that should prevent us from being successful in our career.
Oh, thank you. We have one question that came in for Laura. So as a woman business owner in the construction industry, do you think a woman today, if she were to open her own construction company, face the same issues as when you started your own business? And do you feel there is more of a paved road toward growth in the industry?
It's going to be, when I started my career, I was 56 when I started this company. And I personally didn't see any obstacles other than the ones I created myself. But if I were to start a construction company, there in the area, I would surround myself by not only women, but men, and that have talents that are unique to themselves. And just I don't think there would be a lot of, from my experience, a lot of pushback from folks and other businesses in the area. There are a lot of female-owned construction industry, construction companies in the area, and I just think that they've gone beyond that. There are going to be hiccups along the way, but I think it's definitely doable, and you can see great success. And I think you know, I'm not man bashing, because the people that support us are men as well, and they're just incredible support for us. I hope that answered your question.
No, thank you, Laura. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming to today's webinar. And I'd like to leave the last few minutes for questions and answers. We also offer a free 30-day trial after the webinar. So we'll send a recap email with everything so everyone can follow up. Now, the one question that came up was, what is a great way to enforce utilizing new construction technology for a project? Since there's so many cooks in the kitchen, so many people communicating and collaborating, what would be a simple and smooth way to enforce new technology?
I think I could probably start with that one. So that definitely is an issue. Like right now I'm on a project team that's maybe like 60, 70 people. And, you know, I dealt with that at LaGuardia as well. And I think the biggest solution to that issue, in my experience, has been really getting integrated with the project team, like really being there, you know, physically, like showing your face, like going to the meetings, like getting involved with the project, you know, kind of helping them detect their issues, and also, you know, providing a technology solution that can help with that issue. Like for example, there's some you know, RFIs going back and forth on the project, and I noticed that one team was using mostly just PDFs, like drawings, to look at what the issue is, and they were getting pretty, you know, it wasn't very clear to them. So I went to them and I showed them, I was like, you can use the model, you know, we can look in the model and see, because ultimately the design drawings are coming from the model. So I showed them how to use Navisworks. They downloaded Navisworks Freedom. I sat with them, you know, one-on-one. I think one-on-one is the best way to teach anyone a new software. I know it takes up more time than doing a lecture, but it's definitely the best way to teach, especially with those less tech savvy people that might have a lot of questions along the way. So we sat down, he learned how to use the model, and now he's using that model. You know, he's using the model. He's not even necessarily going to be looking at the drawings when it relates to coordination issues between multiple trades. So that's just something, like just being aware and being cognizant of any of the issues that the team might be facing, and always thinking of like, how can what I'm doing, how can my technology, how can the team's technology solve this issue? And that's what I think is very important. Really just being involved, being, you know, involved with the team, and, you know, being involved with the project as well.
If I can add on to that, I would say to what Megan's saying, also utilizing the programs yourself is important, because we're always introduced to new technologies. When I first started, there was no such thing as Procore. There was no such thing as like, you know, we're using all these AVIR programs where you can see the field without having to be in the field. it's good to know how to get on site and navigate the site by yourself, but it's also good to know how to use the programs. And if you don't force yourself to learn them, then you won't use them. So, even though Procores say like their daily meeting agenda log is not as easy for you as using a Microsoft Word document, it's just a matter of doing it enough times until you get used to using it, and then kind of practicing what you preach. Eventually your team is going to get on board and try to follow whatever protocol you establish. And then the other thing is, if you see a really cool program or a new type of technology that's available, there's no harm in going to your executives and saying, hey, I think this is really cool. Maybe it's going to work for us. Why don't we get these guys in to show us a demo, and maybe we use it or maybe we don't. But keeping your eyes out for that too is good, because sometimes there's really interesting technologies out there that we just don't know about. And it's worth it to bring it up to an executive and see if it would function for your project.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. It looks like we ran out of time, but I'd like to leave 1 minute for one question. What do you think is the most important change happening in the construction industry right now? If you can summarize that in one short sentence.
It's hard to put into one sentence.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I think technology is the #1 leading change. I think in my 12 years of being in Aecom Tishman, we have drastically changed our ways of communicating. And I think it has to do a lot with technology and social media and access to information.
Definitely. Yeah, I think just to build off that, like, I think there's a lot of issues with the industry, right? Like there's a bunch of when it's a big project, there's so many different data silos, and being able to stay on the same page is really hard. And like, I think technology really helps with that. Like whether it's a Procore or even just having a master model that everyone can go to and, have as like a single source of truth. To me, that's something that is really going to solve a lot of the issues with, all those silos, like, and in the industry. So I definitely agree with that.
Cool. Now, thank you for everyone. We're a few minutes over, but I appreciate everyone's time and patience for the webinar. As a follow-up, everyone should get a little email, a recap, and a video recording and next steps. Thank you for attending, and thank you, Laura, Carolyn, and Megan, for joining and giving your insights.
Thank you, guys.
Pleasure.
Have
Have a nice one,
day.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.